Hey, thanks everybody for joining the Security Innovation panel here at the CSA AI Agentic Summit. I got like four of the smartest people on the planet, at least I think so, with me today. We wanted to start this panel because I think security is so important right now. The last 2 weeks, everyone's talking about the Mythos crisis, innovation and advancement. We're seeing a lot of that with the AI models right now. And so, what are we doing from a security perspective about these advancements? Uh, that's why I have these four on the call with me today. So we saw that there's a vulnerability storm coming. This was led by one of our very own panels here, Gadi Evron. Uh, what is this going to mean for the next generation models? What are we going to do about it from a security perspective? What are we building? How are we innovating? That's why I have these four on the call with me today, because for some of the best in the business. So with that, I know I have Aum Upadhyay on the call with Samero, Alex Polyakov with Adversa, Barak Sternberg with Tenant Security, and Gadi Evron with Gnostic. I would like to just go around the room, have everybody introduce themselves, and just tell us about your story as a builder. I think that's the important thing too. So I want to hear about you. I want to hear about your story. I want to hear about what you're doing here as a builder. So let's start with Aum. Aum, introduce yourself and tell us a bit about you.
Sure, yeah. Hey everyone, my name is Aum, and we're building Somerl, which is a self-improving prompt injection defense. My story starts around 10 years ago with AI. I was around 15 years old when I started hacking with computer vision, ML models, and doing research in that space. And it kind of just kept on going as a builder until graduated college, and I started work at AWS, where I was building security frameworks and privacy frameworks for Elastic Container Services, which is like their core container orchestration framework. At the time, a lot of the GPU usage was some foundational model labs, but also internal teams like SageMaker and Bedrock. Got the chance to see the arms race between attackers that are AI enabled and defenders kind of developing live, where not only were we seeing incidents, but we were also seeing a lot of interesting customer incidents related to this space, and foresaw that the time to exploit was just going to go to zero. So how do we build a defense around that? Partnered up with a buddy of mine, Eduardo, who was building machine learning models that were hardened and were on the homepage, and agents. And we decided to just leave Amazon, spend a year white hat hacking, kind of like hipsters, just going around different conferences, white hat hacking different systems, trying to really get a bearing for what people are thinking about this space and how to build a solution that works for security teams. And then we came across Somerl.
That's awesome. Great story. Like, one, super hands-on, and you highlighted on time to exploit, which is exactly something that I think people are worried about these days, especially with this explosion of vulnerabilities that we're going to see with the new model. So thanks for being here. I think that's a great story. Let's jump to Alex. Alex, maybe tell us a little bit about you and what you're doing over at Adversa.
So through all of my career, I've been in cybersecurity, like around 20 years. So I've like basically done a lot of research in all areas in cybersecurity. Like 6 years ago, we were building a platform, like essentially a cybersecurity platform that uses AI to detect attacks and malicious user behavior. And I've dived into AI algorithms more and more, and I realized that the AI systems and particularly neural networks are fundamentally vulnerable. And it's like you always can create some input that can manipulate the output in such a way that the output will be as you want. And I was like, when AI systems will be everywhere, the security for AI will be super important. And that was the idea, like to create Adversa, but that was quite a long time ago, and there were no production AI systems at scale. And we realized that let's start it as an AI research lab focused on security to understand risks before they occur. And this is how Adversa started. And we've been doing the red teaming for AI systems before the red teaming term was actually coined and before ChatGPT was released. And then when ChatGPT was released, we actually realized that that's the moment. That's the moment when the AI systems will be everywhere and security will be super important. So that's basically here we are.
You guys are using AI to attack a lot of systems, and then you recognize actually it's like, hey, the vulnerability is actually in the AI systems that we're using too. And so you kind of honed on that, started out as a research lab until you built something that was really significant enough and proficient enough to actually use with today's current models. Does it sound right?
Sure.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Right on. Hey, Brock, can you tell us about yourself too and what you're building and your story as a builder?
I think for my entire career, my job was kind of to break things. So, starting in 800, you used to think like, the adversary, being there for 8 years, you find a microscopic crack in that armor and you try to make it in and widen it up to an open kind of thing. And, as we continue as a researchers, both and Sentinel-1 has been first researchers in Cisco AI defense, even before Robust, we spend a lot of our time, working on 0 days, not just on AI security, but in DEF CON presenting about IoT security and browser security, investigating a lot of different kind of vulnerabilities. That was the time we've been doing the first company together and being a part of Cisco AI Defense, breaking Fortune 500 kind of stress testing AI systems. We built the first DAS solution for agentic workflows. And I think that's where we got this aha moment that was like, was so surprising for us that there is a vulnerability that is massively anywhere and it's not fixable. And the ability to manipulate an agent that have connectivity to tools and make him do whatever you want on behalf of the attacker is an attack you call like agent jacking, to manipulate the agent with its origin tools and exploit it like a rope chain for some attackers would suspect. It's astounding. So when we think about that, the organization had a huge lack of that, and testing was not enough anymore. So we feel the urgent to build something that doesn't just give you another testing or assessment for what you have, but real-time protection and kill switch to say yes to your organization, to enable autonomous agents. And that's what we're building, the runtime protection to enable the yes.
I love that. And yeah, I know Barak's spoken at DEF CON, always building things and breaking things and understanding stress testing. So yeah, I think some of the tools that you were using were in agents, and you saw the wide use of agents for all these things. And so what do we do about the agents? How do we protect those agents? And you applied those stress techniques to the agent themselves. So yeah, I think that's pretty cool. Last but not least, Gadi Evron, the ultimate builder to me. Tell us a little bit about just you as a builder, what you've done your whole career.
Sure. So I started technical. I can barely remember that anymore. And now as CEO, I can't even claim to be technical, right? So my whole career was essentially about moving away from the technical to be with people. Because if you want to build something that's bigger than yourself, you need other people around you. At least you did. Now with agents, I'm not sure anymore, right? Crisis of faith here, but also an opportunity. And I think that's the moment I want to kind of focus on instead of my entire career, where the first time I got Cursor, right, ChatGPT, and Claude and Claude Code, and all of these tools, whether they're just a chat tool or a full agent, I became a builder again. I became a maker again, meaning I have an idea. I have some sort of concept. I don't need to convince anybody. I don't need to think about it. I don't need, although I like to think about things. I don't need to write something on the board. I go and do. I write a prompt. I talk to the model. I talk to the agent, and it just happens. And my philosophy has changed. It's always about fail forward. Can I write something now? Can I get the tool ready now? Can I just fail with it miserably and then come back the next day and try something else entirely? And that constantly keeps me on the edge. It constantly keeps me in a place where I'm building and thinking and exploring opportunities. And that's just wonderful to me. And that leads me to where I think everybody should be. We should all try because it's that easy. And if we don't try, if we think we're outmoded, if we think we're too old, it's a shame. Go now. Grab that opportunity. Grab an agent. Grab Cloud Code, Cursor, even Cowork, which is not a coding agent, and just try. Talk to it. I think that's truly the one takeaway I want people to take in what changed my life and how I do everything. Because I do believe agents will replace us all, not just augment us. And our only way to remain relevant is to be a part of that. And that also brings me to what we do in Gnostic, which is agents are also very dangerous, meaning they are extremely privileged. They are very much dangerous. They are targeted by attackers, and they're also the main use case with ROI we see at the enterprise these days. So we have to protect them. We have to defend them. We have to make sure they don't delete the hard drive by mistake. Protect from stupid before you do malicious. When they get an extension or somebody just copies a prompt off the internet, like they used to copy code from Stack Overflow, that it doesn't own our entire enterprise. And that's what we do. And I'm extremely excited about it as a mission, really, more than just a product. Thank you.
I love Gadi's story too, and people are telling me they're using like their 40-year-old CS degrees to build things again because of the technology that we have today. Gadi, I'm not saying you're one of the ones that is using a 40-year-old degree. I know you're not that old, but agents are becoming important, if not as important, if not more important than the humans, because yeah, it's just a matter of time. If not already, that agents outnumber our human employees, and we're using these things. Our employees are using multiple agents to build things. So I think that's super solid. You touched on something too, Gadi. So I want to stick with you on this too. You mentioned like, hey, you like to fail forward. You like to make a lot of mistakes, and you can answer this in a couple different ways. What kind of mistakes have you made in order to make your, what you've done today at Gnostic awesome? Or maybe just what mistakes have you made that you can share with current and future builders?
I think that the first mistake is to do a startup, right? But that's what I know how to do now. I've been in enterprises, I've done other things, but honestly, that's who I am. I want the frequency of events to be really fast, frequency of mistakes to be really fast. You always fail forward. You always just try to get to market as fast as you can, understand what people want, live under stress, do everything you possibly can to build the airplane, invent and build the airplane as you jump off the cliff. So that's mistake number one. But honestly, in the so-called AI age right now, I think there is a major difference in how the very business model works, where customers don't know what they want because they can't. And when they do want what they want, they know it will change tomorrow morning. So for me, my main focus is no longer on any differentiation or moat, even though we managed to build those once in a while. Somebody will just get there very quickly, but rather, how can we make sure to constantly stay on top of what's coming next? Meaning my research department now is not about just what people use it for PR, and it's not about just figuring out whether something would work for product or trying to figure out something for R&D or doing a spike to be able to research something before you develop, but rather every single month, I want to know what I can potentially pivot my startup to within that space. Because in 3 months, my customers are going to need something based on capabilities. Not if I wait to hear what they want at this stage, I'll make a mistake. I'll be irrelevant. It's 30 days to or 90 days, depending how aggressive you want to be, to product market fit or out. You found product market fit, 90 days to product market fit or out. I will go to my customers and say, hey, this is a demo. You know what? We're just starting to look at this as well. And I'll show them a demo. And in some cases, nobody will want it. It will become interesting PR or just get buried. In some cases, it will get added to the wider platform. And in some cases, it becomes open source. But I have to constantly be at the edge of this right now. It's so hard to do a startup. And in the age of AI, it's become so much easier to build, but at the same time, it's extremely hard to survive and make yourself relevant. So for me, number one, no moat. Number two, 90 days to product market fit or out, even if you already found it. And number three, constantly make the hard decision of taking resources away from engineering where you don't have enough and research what's next to provide it to your customers. These are the biggest changes for me, I suppose.
Wow. Take resources away from your engineers just so they can focus on the customers?
It's always about the customers, right? But essentially, I'm creating a separate engineering department that goes for things that are not related to the immediate product. And that's a hard decision because you're always behind. You always want to develop more. But I knew, for example, I'll give you an example right now. We are securing agents, right? Most 99.9% of the agents in the world right now you can find users, employees using are coding agents. With that said, you can see some of these desktop agents starting. If I wait for somebody to ask for them, I'll be irrelevant, right? At the same time, we can see a lot of people starting to use their phones. BYOD is a huge problem for many years. We didn't necessarily find a solution for it as an industry. But when people code from their phones, if you don't have a solution, you're irrelevant, right? Another example is you look at the supply chain. So somebody invented hooks. If I wait for them to say, we don't just want to control extensions or MCP servers or skills or rules, but we now want to look at hooks, I'll be too late. So I have to look at the capabilities. I have to look at the change log and say, what has now moved from, for example, for something I just built for myself in my scaffolding to something that is in some scaffolding framework like Cloudflow or Maestro, something that everybody every minute of the day puts on Twitter, hey, I just built this, look at my GitHub, to it's now a feature of Cloud Code. 3 months after that, it's already something they need. So can I predict the future? No, because then OpenClaw comes out and throws all my plans out the window. But that's my take right now. You have to constantly innovate. And that is really, really hard to build product market fit and customer base upon. So it's a really hard market. But with that said, we do live in one of the most interesting eras in history. I really do believe that.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. And I'm summarizing what you said super crudely, but you want everybody to just play with things, like make those mistakes.
Take people along with you for the ride because you can, and it's easy. They just need to see the lights. It's my belief system now, Cloud Code or whatever. Yeah. And people will be left behind. So if we can pick even just one more person along with us and have them see how easy it is and play and be empowered, bottom line is I am undiagnosed ADHD, and I used to have imposter syndrome. Now I'm just an imposter. I just go and do things I have no knowledge about and I'm successful with them because of these kinds of systems. And I want more people to stay relevant as long as possible and to feel the power AI gives them as opposed to just feel threatened by it.
Yeah, man, I love that. And that's why you said earlier, one of the mistakes is getting the startups. I think absolutely not, Gadi. We need leaders like you. And the customer environment then changes all the time. That's a real key thing to remember too, that, hey, not only do you need to fail fast, but you need to listen to your customers because customers fail fast too, right? And so in today's world,
You have to provide them with a partnership, right? It's what people know. They need to trust you that when the technology changes, you will still be there with the new technology because nobody knows everything at this stage.
Yeah, I want to jump over to now to let's go back to Aum. Maybe you can share some of the mistakes that you made along the way that either made what you're doing today like even better, or just steps that you're like, hey, you know what, as a founder, as a builder, here's something to look out for.
Yeah, and I actually have a partial disagreement with Gadi here. I think there's some things that we can do a little more proactively. The number one mistake that I made early on as a younger security consultant, like a practitioner, is listening to a lot of the traditional advice and trying to map it over to emerging fields. I think that practice is safe and it feels good, but we realize it doesn't really work. For me, that was just learning to trust my gut. There's a lot of there's a lot of thought leadership, and these are all really impressive individuals who have done a huge amount to move the field forward. But when emerging technologies like AI come out that have a fundamentally different way of operating, there's room for younger people to start practicing security, make their own best principles, learn about what their customers actually want, and be a bit more proactive in predicting the future. And that's kind of my main takeaway is like, trust my gut. I think I know where AI is headed. Haven't been wrong so far. Probably won't be wrong in the future. So using that understanding, let's build out something where our customers don't need to worry about our churn. We don't pivot every 90 days because we kind of see a little forward into the future and build for that. So that's a little different of an approach that I think is something that has been a bit unconventional in the security space right now.
You kind of flipped it a little bit though too, right? You're thinking that, hey, there's a lot of traditional thinking, traditional methods. We could even say that people are using AI to assist in like human processes, where if you're trying to refactor, really rethink things, like, hey, the human factor is a lot different now. So you're trying to build something around AI, but at the same time, you're trying to stay true to that path, at least make sure that you deliver something and not change.
And John, Aum and I aren't really that far away because
Yeah.
all these classic advice of the bro science of startups, which worked since the 70s, right? Like focus.
Yeah.
So I know I'm contradicting what you said, but focus is really, really hard when you have to keep changing every day. With that said, we tried our first product was we believe 100% this is where AI will go, and it will. But we were a few years early to market. If Henry Ford said, if I asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. Well, we built a Lamborghini when everybody wanted a workhorse or maybe a mule or a donkey. We're way early to market. So I think that our advice is kind of the same, but coming from a different journey, where it comes down to the classic model. While I still try to apply it just the same as Aum, has changed so drastically. We can't rely on it blindly, even if VCs expect us to.
So I think we need to separate here a couple key factors. One is building the business and then solving the problem for customers. They are completely independent. Like, we don't think about VCs when we build a business. We think about only our customers. And I know you also think the same way, Gadi. Like, being focused on just our customers and the industry is interesting, but I think we as founders of the whole security industry as a whole need to start going deeper into a lot of the primitives that we've kind of accepted. So we need to start becoming deeper builders. We need to understand the engineering concepts more fundamentally, because up until now it kind of worked, right? Like, we could have the engineering team say, hey, I'm going to build this web service and it's going to have this API endpoint. Let's build security around that. But now we're seeing, with the velocity of engineering and the time to exploit go to zero, we actually need, as security engineers, to be a part of the SDLC process at an earlier stage. We need to be more involved with the fundamental constructs that the engineers will start using so that we become enablers of business growth. And I think that kind of shift is something that is very recent. And that's kind of going back to what I was mentioning before, is if I would have been the naive individual who first started in cybersecurity and kind of listened to a lot of traditional processes, allowed myself to become a cog in the machine of how we usually operate, instead of trying to break out of that and get more involved, I think we wouldn't be where we are. And that's kind of the core learning that I have from that. And I think that's something that we can kind of extrapolate that to pretty much everyone who's getting started now, is how do you become more impactful and help solve bigger problems.
Yeah, that's great. I like it. Building a business, solving a problem, SDLC. the software development lifecycle if it hasn't changed completely, if it's not completely almost way different than it was before. So, can we hear from Barak too? Barak.
So I think that, I'm so technical, and I think many of us are, and it's like it's a blessing, but it's a curse in the same time, because as Gadi say, and I really agree with that point on the partnership and the trusted partner that you can grow with, as long as the innovation and things keep changing. So more important than knowing all, and it's important to know, like, obviously the technology and evolve the technology and make the best technology you can, obviously, but like building partnerships, building real relationships with people, genuine partnerships that they can trust on is so important. I know it sounds like a cliche, but for me, it was like, you need to focus that more than you even think, even if the market is so technical. The second thing is like breaking illusions. So I think that it's not a conflict to be a good advisor and and a partner, but still break the illusions of what people think about the industry and the security controls and stuff like that. Being proactive and saying, like, you trust leaky gateways or leaky sandboxes to secure agents. It's not going to work, and this is why. And it's like doing this and that, and this is the assumptions you made, but then you connected also this and that, so it doesn't work anymore. And I think that the last thing is that I used to think that focus and platform are two different kind of things. And I think that if you build, and it's really hard, and obviously, like, I'm saying all that, we always iterate as a startup, we're always growing, but you can be focused and still build a platform. Because if you narrow down and know your customers enough, you don't need to build a platform for all your customers, but you need to build a platform that will solve your ICP, your relevant customer base. And for them, there is some repetition. And when you find that, it's like, for me, it was so surprising to see that we are actually solving not just, AI agents that run in endpoint or production, but solving all the AI security for these kind of specific customers and base. So I think that focus and platforms are not necessarily contradicting. That's a very high level kind of cliche, but that's some of my learning throughout the time.
You don't want to just build things randomly, and even you don't want to build things too siloed as well. You need to have that partnership with your customers, so you're actually building something that's going to be applicable there. So you're focused and you have that platform that's for your customers. And I think that's really important, especially, you talked about how you came from a technical background, so all you want to do is build. And it's like, wait a second. And Gadi touched on this, touched on this. It's like, hey, we also need to make sure that there's some intention there. Like, so we're listening to our customers, we're building something for to solve something for somebody. That's cool. Hey, Alex.
So we actually iterated through all 3 generations of AI attack surface, and there will be probably much more. So we started with adversarial machine learning, and we demonstrated some attacks on computer vision and create a platform that can test, AI models for adversarial attacks. And then ChatGPT came, and we have to throw most of the research and innovation away because it became irrelevant. So the ChatGPT, we started again. The mode was the different types of prompts and the collection of jailbreaks and the collections of prompt injections and techniques and etc. And then the agents came, and you have to it's completely different. Obviously you can apply the same things, but it's not what the real agent security testing needs, because you have a lot of different attack surfaces, and you cannot just throw millions of adversarial prompts. You won't have time to do that. So, and we have to change again and iterate again. This scar tissue really trained us for the moment when we are right now. And Gadi said we need to innovate every 3 months. So we kind of prepared for that. we multiple times created a product and throw it away, created another one, another architecture, and those were the mistakes. But I hope that it was not only the mistakes, and we learned from that.
No, that's good advice too. So, don't be afraid to start over, right? And I know that's probably the hard part. People don't know, hey, when do I start over? And we certainly saw with significant shifts. Prompting became a new attack surface. Agents, and more powerful models, not just the models themselves, but powerful models in the hands of adversaries and being used for either carelessly or for nefarious reasons. And so, I think it's really solid stuff for sure. I want to close too, and I want to go around the board too, and we'll we'll stick with you, Alex, too. But I really want everybody just to share, like, hey, what do we think is going to really happen next? What are you either planning for? What are you predicting? Do we need security even more? Maybe you can just give us either a bold prediction or something that you think is pretty exciting.
Okay. So yeah, everyone is talking about the misses. For me, this interesting aha moment when I realized that AI models actually can do really good stuff in terms of security was like in the second week of ChatGPT release. And I've tried ChatGPT to bypass the security of, I even forgot how this model was called, the first image generation model of OpenAI. So I used ChatGPT to bypass this, and it gave me the real instruction of how to bypass it. And I was like, wow, this thing is really smart, because I used to think that cybersecurity is like the next level after development, because in order to do cybersecurity, you need to know how systems work. So like that's the next level. And now I see systems that know cybersecurity. And I realized that it actually for offensive, all the, we call it hallucinations, and we think that we see that models sometimes can hallucinate and provide absolute bullshit. But for offensive, this is actually what we need. We need only one successful example from hundreds of examples, and the more unusual this example, the better for us. So we realized early that AI systems will be really good at hacking. And it was not a surprise for us that what Mesos did, because we've done the same with the smaller models. But what I think is actually will be important right now is that if everyone can do the same thing as Mesos can do, that it means that really cyber criminals have much more power, and it's super easy for them to do that. And it is nice to have a red teaming and find some unusual vulnerabilities, but no one have time to find them. No one have time to fix them. And everyone is like, yeah, but those are really, complex vulnerabilities. It's not for us, probably. I think it will change, and there will be a much more need for security testing, because now everyone can do the same. And if we don't, try to test our systems before, someone else will do that.
Alex, do you think we're going to see better testing and patching, or do you think we're going to see a major exploit then coming up here?
We obviously will see major exploit, but I will think that the much more companies will be able to afford different types of red teaming, because it will be a need, and the need will be filled with different levels of capabilities.
I'm excited about some of that stuff that we're going to see here too. Hey, Barak, how about you? What do you think is going to happen next?
So I have kind of similar story to the starting point of Alex. Used to play in end of 2022, and crafting a malware that bypassing Sentinel-1 and CrowdStrike. And I remember the first time using ChatGPT 3.5 to craft an exploit, or in my LinkedIn you can see the post of malware doing that, bypassing EDR tools, and I was like, okay, shit, that can do something that is real, and it was so fast, and I can do so many versions of that. So for me, Mythos is not a surprise. And for many average attackers as well, I think that it's not a huge surprise. Like to implement 1 days and 0 days, I think, yes, now the world is aware that the window is being collapsed. Now the world is more aware that it's being collapsed from days to hours. But you know what? Days didn't matter even then, because it was still so hard. It did matter, right? But it was still so hard to work and fix vulnerabilities within that. So what I believe would happen to the industry is obviously more exploits, more 0 days exploited in real time. Obviously, it's going to happen. Attackers that are now noobs would be able to do it way faster, way faster, in that regard. But I think that on the defense side, I try to be more optimistic, because I think that actionability first is needed and must have. And for that to happen, you need to have other, blast radius controls. I love the virtual patching and compensating control approach. So I know that not all organizations have voted for that, but I think that's a really thing that we've not captured fully as an organization. And I know as an attacker how hard it is if you just make the right virtual patching in the right time. And I know many startups that are doing exactly that you can mitigate, 90% of the attackers that can try and do that. So I think we're going to see much more innovative security controls that are going to tackle that in a more meaningful and lightweight ways. So that's on the brink of that. On the other side, I think that because of these Mythos agents, people will finally realize that AI agents can do much more than you can think about, much more in unbehaved, non-deterministic way. But you give them to do a CTF, but they find a 0-day to the container and do a sandbox escape. So they manipulate their way around in a non-expecting ways, and that would absolutely make much more needs for for the kill switch for these agents, when these agents are going work to stop them in real time and not just looking at your house burning. Because we are now in so many areas in the security industry where we're just detecting and giving more and more noise and more findings without actionability, or even if we find them, it's too long for agents to tackle the problems and the security vulnerabilities. So we need to figure out a way, and we need to have these ways to protect in real time. And I think it's a huge differentiation of mindset that people will realize that are coming up next. That's going to be that.
Right. So it sounds like both, Alex and Barak, it's like, hey, we expect to see a lot of the attackers, but you're both kind of excited about like, hey, there's going to be massive security innovation. We're kind of looking forward to seeing what's next from that perspective, right? That's pretty cool. I like that too.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. The way I frame it is, this isn't the Mythos step up. This is a Mythos 1.0 step up in capability. There's going to be a 2.0, there's going to be a 3.0, there's going to be an N.0 that's going to be coming after. The security teams that come out of this on top are going to be the ones that don't just make their defenses better, but they make them different. We need to kind of accept a lot of unconventional approaches around self-healing, being application specific, and having new primitives that are going to allow us to stay ahead of the N.0 version of Mythos. And for us, I think what we're seeing, at least from our customers who have used us and are actually having attackers with AI try to probe their systems, being self-healing and having feedback loops that are really tight, really autonomous, allow them to actually abstract away the complexity of dealing with an AI-enabled attacker versus dealing with just a regular attacker, which is very powerful, because now you just remove leverage completely. You find the vulnerability in like 10 milliseconds, great, we'll block it in 5. Like, that's basically the effect that we're seeing. And then on the front of new primitives, I think Mythos has me very optimistic, because now we can kind of go beyond traditional cybersecurity approaches of, hey, let's match this input to known attacks and see what's going to happen. We can actually start to develop a more predictive understanding of how systems are being executed at runtime and start stopping harmful outcomes directly. And I think that's very powerful, because that's always been the goal of cybersecurity. We just never really had the tools, the intelligence, and the infra to go after that. And then being application specific is also extremely interesting, where I think a lot of the security teams are going to be buying vendors, and they're going to be looking for solutions that are built for them. They're not just built for everyone. And that presents a very interesting kind of turn of events for us, where we can use a lot of this newer technology, use agents, use reinforcement learning, simulation engines to build something that is very custom to each customer with the same underlying infra. So from our perspective as builders, we're very excited. This is a time where we're seeing a lot of us crazy people with ideas that were not accepted before are now kind of seeing these things come into light. They're being accepted, and it's very satisfying for us. And I think our customers who are adopting us are also being rewarded for that with more growth and more security.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, yeah. So Mythos is just a start. We're going to see many waves of innovation and step ups in these models. Hey, Gadi, can you bring us home? What's next for you? Share with us your vision.
Really, who the heck knows what's going to happen next? But I'll tell you this, I will echo what everybody said, but say it slightly differently. This is, whether it's 1.0 or N.0, we'll see other waves, right? And as we're building our quote-unquote Mythos-ready security program, as we're learning to deal with this, what we're essentially doing is we're building a security program like we always did, only it's minimum viable resiliency. And as we protect ourselves from these vulnerabilities, as we ready ourselves for a deluge of patches or non-existing patches but exploits, as we ready ourselves for all of that, we need to remember that attackers have already had their singularity moments, a micro-singularity if you like. The singularity is not evenly distributed. I cannot necessarily say we have seen all that's possible with attack, but we have reached a sort of local maximum where I can't imagine what's beyond what's next. Right? I can see evolution of the next few years, but I can't imagine, oh my God, will they be able to send an ion pulse that will flip the bit and something quantum will happen? We can see the autonomous attacks, and the attackers are there for now. Defense isn't. There are certain things in defense that happen, for example, using the attackers' technologies for us, as was discussed, but we don't yet really have good, solid capabilities in cyber defense, for example, with AI. They're starting. They're not mature yet as they are for the attacker side. And for me, that means number one, we have to use agents because at least we as people can now stop running at people speed or human speed and running machine speed to be more able to counter the attackers who already hit their singularity moment or are already at machine speed. And number two is as we start looking at our own code with agents, like we discussed, that we start, whether we're in GRC or incident response, using agents to be faster and more effective and relevant even, I would go. We can also look into the future and say, as we build all this, until more AI-based defense technology comes in, how do we build this for resiliency so when the next thing comes, it's not as big of a storm? And as for me, my small bit of it, other than being in the community, is my own startup, where I'm saying we need to protect these agents because they're a whole world of problems on their own. That's where I'm focusing.
Ultimately, we know that there are going to be waves of innovation coming. Mythos was like one piece of that, one start of it. And we expect to see a lot of innovation and security behind people like yourselves, builders like yourselves, not just what you're doing now, but the people that you are helping shape, build stuff within your companies that are going to continue to build new security solutions for. What we really don't know is coming. Other than that, we're seeing massive step ups in innovation, and we're in the middle of it. We're chasing it. We're also protecting it, and I'm so happy that four people like yourselves, four innovators like yourselves, are a part of this journey. So thanks for being on this. All I can say to everybody listening is watch out, be ready, play with agents now so that we're somewhat ready for what's next, because I don't think we know what's really coming, but we can build resiliencies, we can be super innovative, and we can just think differently in order to kind of just take ourselves to the future. So thanks so much for being here. Can we give it up one more time to Gadi, Alex, and Barak? Thanks, you guys. Appreciate it.